Welcome in, everybody, to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm Tim Dennis. Have a fascinating show for you today, folks. We're going to take it back 100 years. We're going to go back 100 years into the past, and we're going to go to a time that really mirrors our own time right here in 2022. A time where conservatism and a new age are kind of butting heads. We're going to go to a time where a woman named Fritzie Mann lost her life, a woman who was a bit misunderstood. She was an interpretive dancer who was misunderstood as a flapper. She unfortunately lost her life on a beach just outside of San Diego. And we're going to get into it with author James Stewart. And we're going to talk about his book, Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottage, which is an amazing read. It really is, folks. It talks about a time in history in January of 1923 where 20-year-old Fritzie Mann left home for a remote cottage by the sea to meet a man whose identity she had revealed to no one. She didn't even reveal it to her own mother. The next morning, the barely clad body of the beautiful and bewitching dancer washed up on lonely Torrey Pines beach, her party dress and possessions strewn about on the sand. And we're going to get into that with James Stewart. James Stewart was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. After graduating from Louisiana State University with a BS in Industrial Technology, he spent 25 years on active duty with the U.S. Navy. He also holds a BA in English from National University and an MFA in creative writing from University of California, Riverside. He lives with his family in San Diego, California. The book is Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottage, a true story of murder in San Diego's jazz age. And this, I believe, is your first book. Is that right, James? We'll bring in now James Stewart to True Crime Tuesday.
Yeah, that's correct. I wrote a couple of novels about 30, 40 years ago, but never got published. And so after I retired, I wanted to get back to writing, and it spent a number of years doing this book. So.
Well, I'll tell you, my friend, it is quite the read. And you know what's great is you really do bring us back 100 years, and you do so, you even state in the beginning of the book that you do so through factual means that you take through not just newspaper clippings, but you take all different sources and you bring us back through that. But you get the feel right away. I mean, I'm right there as you're walking us through what police had to do to put things together with Fritzie Mann. And you get the feeling of what her mother was feeling at the time. You get the anxiety that the family was feeling when it came to Fritzie. You get the idea of how Fritzie was feeling throughout this entire thing. And now let's start from the very beginning. Let's get an idea of who Fritzie Mann really was, because as I pointed out in that introduction, this was really a troubled time in our country in that we had just come out of World War I, and there was a feeling of, we kind of wanted to take the reins off of things a little bit. I think we had come through a real tumultuous time in our country in that we wanted to be a little bit free. We'd face death, and okay. We wanted to unleash, I think, at least the younger generation wanted to unleash a little bit, but there was a wave of conservatism in this country, and the two were butting heads. So the jazz age was coming up in America, and you did have, which is introduced in the book, a bit of the Hollywood age. You had Rudolph Valentino, who was huge in that age, and you had. Well, I'll let you explain a little bit about it. So you had these forces that were butting heads here in America, and you play that out excellently between even the forces in the Mann family. Tell us a little bit about Fritzie and who she was and how she came to be in just a young age, at the age of 20 when she died.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad some of that stuff came through because I worked very hard to make sure the time and place was emphasized in the book. Fritzie Mann came from a family, an immigrant Jewish family. Her father was born in Poland and her mother was born in Hungary. And currently, those two places where both of her parents were born are now in Ukraine. Present day Ukraine. If you're familiar with Eastern European history at all, the borders shifted, constantly across the millennia. So, it's quite a bit different. Anyway, the family ended up in Bosnia, Sarajevo, Bosnia. And that's where the family's three children were born. She had an older brother named William, who was about 4 years older than her. And she had a sister named Helen, who was 2 years older than her. And then Fritzie. Fritzie was born in 1902.
Okay.
And in 1910, she was, I guess, still 7 years old. They immigrated. They came across on a ship through Ellis Island, like, millions of other immigrants did during that time. And they were met on the pier in New York by Amelia Mann, her mother. Her brother and some of his family had immigrated previously, like back in the 1890s, and they had settled in Nashville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And her brother met him on the pier. Presumably, they went and stayed there for a while, but very soon after that, they moved west to Colorado. And they didn't pick it out of a hat. They went to Denver. And the reason is her father had tuberculosis, which was the scourge then. Yeah. Just a huge, we forget about it because the disease is, curable now. And back then it was not. Mm-hmm. And so the thought was, and it's probably true to some extent, the high altitude, dry air in Colorado was considered to be good for tubercular, as they call it back then, consumption is how they referred to it then.
Well, you know what, James, if I can stop you for a minute, sure. Tuberculosis itself, I mean, it wasn't a disease that just reigned for, just a period of 10 years. It went on for decades. I mean, I remember I produced for Lake Hammond, who was a jazz DJ here in the Twin Cities. And in World War II, he was in the Army, but he served for Armed Forces Radio. And they used to do shows in Denver, and the Army had a huge tuberculosis hospital in Denver. And the reason why is that exact same reason that you cite, because they really didn't have great medication for tuberculosis at the time. And for that reason you cite, they just got them to a higher altitude, a drier altitude, and just hoped that it would dry out the lungs and keep those soldiers going for as long as they could. With that, I'd throw it back to you.
Yeah, and it was even bigger in World War I because that, 20 years before in that war, it was even less treatable. And there were VA hospitals that were specifically set aside for soldiers returning from World War I. So they settled there for that reason. Her father had tuberculosis, and he died in 1920 from tuberculosis. And a year or two later, I guess it was late 1921, Amelia Mann, her mother, moved the family to San Diego. And the reason was, again, tuberculosis. The high altitude dry air in Colorado had not cured her husband. And her oldest daughter, Helen, had contracted tuberculosis, which was always a problem within families and, that sort of thing. So she had an active case. In fact, she died just about 6 months after Fritzie. Sorry. My dog's name is Trixie. Amelia Mann hoped that San Diego, it also had the reputation. In this case, you didn't have the high altitude so much, but you had the fresh ocean air. Mm-hmm. It's on a desert, dry. So, it had that same reputation. So she was hoping it would miraculously cure her daughter. And so they moved to San Diego. Fritzie and her sister Helen had both trained as dancers in Denver. Fritzie started young. I don't know exactly how young, but her first performance I could find was at the age of 13. And then she kept training. She trained with a well-known ballet dancer who was also an interpretive dancer, who had actually trained with Anna Pavlova, who was probably the most famous ballerina in history, Russian. And Fritzie's mentor was named Domina Marini, and she was Italian, who kind of grew up in England, and then she joined Pavlova's company and traveled around the world with her. And she had retired from the dancing to Denver a few years earlier, and Fritzie started training with her, appeared in some of her performances. Her mentor continued to perform, and with all of her students. And so then when Fritzie moved to San Diego, she continued her career. And she actually had her biggest performance very soon after arriving in San Diego. This was in January of 22. And it was at one of the biggest theaters in San Diego at the time, called the Colonial. And it was a 1,400 seat capacity. And they packed the house for this performance that Fritzie was at, along with a number of other people. But Fritzie did the finale. So it leads you to believe that she probably had some connections within the San Diego dance world. I was never able to find out specifically what those may have been, but she did show up with a letter from her mentor, and that probably helped. And so she got into a big program right away. For the rest of 1922, she performed all around the San Diego and in LA areas. And, you know, she took whatever work she could get. Some of it was just real small venues. Sometimes it was big venues in Balboa Park, you know, so it was kind of all over the map. But that's what she was. She was an interpretive dancer, which most people don't even know what that is anymore. I didn't really. Really? But it was huge then. Yeah, well, I'd heard of it. And, you know, you hear people refer to it sometime. But at the time, it was huge. And a lot of former ballet dancers were doing that. And, you know, vaudeville dancers were doing interpretive dance. And, you know, you've heard of Isadora Duncan, I'm sure. She was the biggest interpretive dancer in the world. But she performed mostly in Europe. And then there was a lot of well-known ones here, too. So it was considered kind of risque to some extent, at least in the traditional and the conservative quarters. Because, you know, if you look at the pictures in the book, you know, there were the outfits they wore were real flamboyant and showy and relatively skimpy compared, you know, to the standards of the day, which were still crawling out of the Victorian times. Right. So, like you were saying, that was all part of the big clash, the culture war that was happening after World War II, and what F. Scott Fitzgerald had already dubbed the Jazz Age, you know, to kind of show the younger generation partying, speakeasies, devil may care, live for today, because our fathers are going to send us off to another war to die. You know, World War I was so horrific. And it was also coming off of that flu epidemic at the same time. Yes. So millions of people in Europe and the U.S. died in just a few years there. So,
you know, we should.
That's why a lot of.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, James, but we should clarify for people what exactly interpretive dance is. It's not necessarily belly dancing, because I think a lot of people may think interpretive dance may be something similar to belly dancing. It's not necessarily. Middle Eastern dancing may be part of it, but at the same time, you can switch to a totally different inspiration from a totally different part of the world and interpret that as a different style of interpretive dance. It could have a theme. It could have, you know, it could tell a story. Right. You know, that's what interpretive dance really is. And it could have erotic overtones. It could not have erotic overtones. It could imply something, but it was not an erotic dance. And that's what separated Fritzie from other people that might have thought that she was a quote unquote flapper.
Right. I'm glad you brought that out because, the newspapers at the time helped blow the case up um, based on that. She was this beautiful dancer. They put these pictures on the front pages of the papers. It ended up across the country for a time there. And, people saw in those pictures what they wanted to see. If you were a conservative, you saw somebody who was, being seductive and trying to inflame male passions and all that sort of thing. Whereas liberals would say this is a new woman who's having her own career and she's pursuing this art form, which it was. I mean, there was nothing salacious about her performances. Now, you have a beautiful young woman who's in terrific shape as a dancer. She's wearing these skimpy, exotic outfits, and, they tended to have sinuous moves. So, you can see how somebody would get that idea, but there was nothing salacious about hers at all. It was, she considered herself an artist. And, like you're saying, interpretive dancing, that from what I got out of the research I did was that the idea was to physically translate a story.
Yeah.
And it tended to be stories from the Middle East, from Asia, India, places like that. They would take traditional, myths and legends and that sort of thing and tell a story out of it. And then the dancers' move without any words was to physically translate that story. And they did tend to have a theme of some sort, along with the story. So, yeah.
Right. So in this, there's already, what's the word I want to use? There's already a misconception of what Fritzie really is. And she carries this misconception with her in her career. Although she's extremely popular in her career and really does get out there. And as you pointed out, she hustles. She's going from, San Francisco to LA to San Diego to these different spots, regardless of what connection she may have. She's actually, as you put it, she's going from what could be small venues or small parties to huge venues and playing huge venues and getting huge crowds. But yet she still has one goal that she wants to break into, and one ceiling she hasn't broken through. And that ceiling is what, James?
Hollywood. Just like millions of other young people at the time, young women, Hollywood was bigger then than it is now. That was another thing. I was familiar with silent pictures in Hollywood to some extent, but until I did the research, I didn't realize the awe that these stars were held in there. There is no equivalent today to Mary Pickford, for instance, who a lot of people now have never heard of. She was the most famous woman on the planet.
Yes.
And she was an actress, right? And director, and she founded her own company and everything, something women just didn't do back then. Charlie Chaplin, Rudolph Valentino, I could just name a bunch of other ones, but it was so glamorous. Hollywood had that reputation. And it only lasted, for maybe 10, 20 years until the talkies came in and changed Hollywood forever. And a lot of those big stars just faded away after that. So, and Fritzie was trying to break in. Now, it was hard to tell just based on the available information how close she got. Now, she did have a connection to a well-known star. And his name was Theodore Kozlov. Now, he wasn't a, movie star of Chaplin magnitude, but he was well known. He worked for the famous director Cecil B. DeMille. He choreographed all of his dances in all of his movies and used a lot of extras from his own dance school. And that's how Fritzie claimed that he was her mentor, along with Domina Marini. I was not able to find specifically that she had trained with him. Now, she may have, He traveled to Denver during that time. He had a studio in LA while she was in San Diego. She may have taken some lessons. A lot of times they fibbed on that kind of thing. So she was probably exaggerating her contact with him.
Sure.
But the reality is, if she knew him at all, that he was easily the best way for a young dancer to break into Hollywood, bar none. He trained the stars in dancing, which was a big thing in the silent film. So that's one way I think she was trying to break him. I couldn't find specific information on that, but just putting two and two together. But she was not able to do it. No, and then something came along and changed all of that. So.
Well, and if you're one step away from DeMille, who's the biggest filmmaker in the world at that point, I mean, why not use that loose connection, even if it just barely gets you in the door to be an extra in a DeMille film? Then why not use it?
Exactly, and that's how people broke in. They got lucky, or they were really good and they got lucky. You had to get lucky no matter what.
Right.
But it was for the Famous Players Company. It was technically called Famous Players Lasky, but everybody referred to it as Famous Players. And it had a lot of the biggest stars under contract. So it was easily the largest and best known studio at the time. And that's the one she was trying to get into. And the papers played that up to some extent, although not as much as I would have thought. They never even discovered her connection to Kozlov. That was something I dug out by accident doing research. If they had made that connection, this probably would have turned into a huge scandal, because it would have involved another star. And this was right on the heels of several notorious scandals. And that really affected, to a lot of extent, the newspaper coverage of the case and helped it to blow up the Hollywood connections. Even though they never made the biggest connection, they did play up that angle of it. And, you had Fatty Arbuckle just in 21, 22. And then in 22, you had the mysterious murder of William Desmond Taylor, which is a fascinating case and probably the biggest Hollywood mystery of all. And that was just starting to die down when Fritzie died. And it just so happened one of the biggest actors on the planet died within a day or two of Fritzie. His name was Wallace Reed, and he died from complications from drug addiction, from a morphine addiction. And that was big news at the time. Whenever you put drugs in Hollywood together, it made big news. And so her story was on the front pages with the death of Wallace Reed. And, people connected that stuff whenever they mentioned Hollywood. And, there were some articles to that effect. Like I said, if they had discovered her connection to Kozlov, this would have been another one of those major Hollywood scandals, almost certainly, because, William Desmond Taylor worked for Famous Players. Fatty Arbuckle worked for Famous Players. Most of the stars involved in all of these scandals worked for Famous Players. Here would have been another one. He could have pulled DeMille into it, for that matter. He definitely would have pulled Kozlov in, and they would have used it, however, regardless of the truth, they would have used it. So,
well, that brings up an interesting point. And one thing that you bring into the book quite often is that there are a lot of, you call it yellow journalism in the book, but which was the term of the time. But there were a lot of tabloid or sensationalist type writings in legitimate newspapers at the time. And it was mainly done to sell papers, which was the main form of media at the time was newspaper. Do you feel like, although, it was a different media at that time, it was unusual to read things like, police would show favoritism to media, to newspaper media. You could ride along with us and question suspects on the way into the police station if you showed favoritism to a mayor or showed favoritism to a police commissioner. Things like that are shocking. Just things you would never see today.
Yeah, the yellow journalism, the tabloid journalism, more accurately called that, but that's what they prefer to it. It was kind of started by William Randolph Hearst back in around the turn of the century, 1890s. And his rival at the time, as far as a newspaper magnate, Joseph Pulitzer,
Mm-hmm.
which, and basically, Hearst just started making stories up. If there wasn't a story there, he would invent it and put it in the papers, and he sold them by the millions. And he had papers all across the country, including in LA.
Mm-hmm.
The papers that really hyped all of those scandals, Fatty Arbuckle, William Desmond Taylor, were the Hearst papers. Now, as you mentioned, it spilled over into even, the largest, most respected papers who had a reputation for accuracy, just trying to compete. They would use elements of that. So this story blew up big in the LA papers as well, almost immediately, just like it did in San Diego, which was really a small town then, and then across the country. And so, yeah, yellow journalism. And as you mentioned with the cops, the media's relationship was completely different then. Now, I'm talking specifically about San Diego. I'm sure it was somewhat similar. And you got to remember, this was the time of Prohibition corruption, which is the other major thing that influenced the culture at that time. They would ride along. If the media was from a paper that supported the mayor, supported the police chief, and gave them good press, they would take those reporters along to the crime scenes with her. In fact, there was a well-known reporter. He wasn't well-known at the time. He became well-known the following year, who actually discovered some evidence in the Blue Sea Cottage, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yes, we will.
But
yep.
They didn't secure crime scenes the same way. They had reporters and civilians there tromping all over the crime scenes. It was a very different time. So.
Which brings up an interesting point here, James, in that things were, I don't want to use the word relaxed. I want to use the word lazy. I mean, there were, everything from journalism. I don't want to use it with the police here because the police didn't know better. They didn't have the techniques in place that they do now. They learned throughout the years of what to do and what not to do. Plus with technology got better. So I think you can excuse the police in this case because they just didn't have the technology in front of them to know better. But with the journalists here, it was just lazy investigating, oh, well, if I just ride along with the cop, he'll tell me what's going on. As opposed to if I just go off and investigate a few leads, I might find something on my own, rather than just make stuff up or just say, she happened to be in this part of town over here, and she might be involved with this guy. There were a lot of things that were thrown out there in the process of the book that really made no sense. I mean, they were just manufacturing things to manufacture things. To sell papers, and it was really a shame.
Yeah, it's a travesty. I mean, you have a lot of the same stuff now, of course.
Sure.
The fake facts and people saying the truth because that's what I want it to be. But in that case, it was, obviously politicians used it to their advantage then, just like they do now. But it was mostly to sell newspapers. It was economic. And most of the papers were not as concerned with the facts then as they should have been traditionally in journalism. And this was really at the height of that, the early 20s. And those Hollywood scandals had a lot to do with it, as a matter of fact. But it's lazy, and it's wanting to sell newspapers. And the San Diego papers, was a smaller town, so it wasn't as bad. Mm-hmm. If you read the San Diego papers, usually they didn't just completely make something up, but they shaded the truth. They twisted a fact or two.
Yeah.
For instance, one of the papers on the first day said that Fritzie had been found on the beach, buried in the sand. Well, that word buried in the sand. She was actually slightly embedded in the sand, left that way by the tide.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, that's a relatively small thing, but it completely distorts what the readers see.
Right.
Somebody buried her in the sand, So, I mean, there was a lot of things like that. And, they always referred to Fritzie as small or little or pretty little girl, all of those kind of things, because that sold newspapers.
Right, right.
And she was relatively small, but she wasn't as small and she certainly wasn't meek at all. If you look at the pictures of her, she's got that, dancer's muscles on her. And, she was in great shape. And everything I was able to find out, she was not a shrinking violet at all.
Right. In the book.
So she was a modern woman in a lot of ways.
In the book, you describe her as 5'4". She's 130 pounds. And when you see the photograph of her when she's dancing, she's very solid. And I don't say that in a, I'm not describing her like a linebacker or anything like that, but she's solid. She's a solid dancer. And by all means,
she had a dancer's physique.
Yeah. Yes, she had a dancer's physique. She very much, she's very muscular. So you're right. She was no shrinking violet. There was no diminutive bit to her. So she was not as the tabloids were making her out to be, but I shouldn't say tabloids. They were newspapers, but they were very tabloid-ish. But they had to put that out there to make her seem sympathetic so they could weave the story that they were looking for, which
absolutely.
I get what you're going for there. I tell you what, at this point, James, let's take our break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about and get into the particulars of the case and exactly how Fritzie ended up dead on that beach, Torrey Pines Beach. Because it's fascinating what the story is and the perception to the public of this quote unquote flapper who might have lived the lifestyle as opposed to Fritzie, the woman who really was in love with one man. And
Correct.
we're gonna separate fact from fiction when we come back. What was up with Fritzie Mann and the surprise that nobody knew about at the end of her life? The surprise as to what she was trying to do at the end of her life that might have cost her life. We'll talk about that when we come back. The name of the book is Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottage, a true story of murder in San Diego's jazz age. We have a link to we have a link in the description of this program that will take you to that book. Also, if you want to check it out right now, jamesstewartauthor.com or wildbluepress.com. You can go to either one of those links right now and get yourself a copy of the book. It's available as well at all good booksellers out there. When we come back, Fritzie Mann and the fact and fiction of her death. That's next when we come back here on True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm Tim Dennis. Our guest is author James Stewart. The name of the book is Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottage, a true story of murder in San Diego's jazz age. And we're talking about Fritzie Mann, who is the victim of a tragic murder out on Torrey Pines Beach, just outside of San Diego. And we were talking about the actual woman as opposed to the interpretive dancer / as the newspapers portrayed her, a flapper. And we're talking about the difference between fact and fiction here, James. Let's talk about the men in her life, or the perceived men in her life. She had some ancillary friends around her. It could be argued that these friends might not have been as close to her as they'd like to think they were. But there were a few friends that were close to her and kind of knew the situation with her. One friend swears that she had just one man in her life that she was deeply in love with. There are other friends that say that she was enamored with a couple of different men. What is truth from fiction in this scenario, James?
Well, when the case broke, almost right away, the by talking to her friends and family, they developed two suspects. One of whom was a doctor who worked at the VA hospital, which is now where Marine Corps Air Station Miramar is, if you're familiar with this area. And the other one was an actor, or a fledgling actor, tall, good-looking guy, who was, I guess you could say he was kind of trying to break into Hollywood as well. So those were the two suspects right away. And the truth is, she had dated the actor for a short time only. Mm-hmm. Now, some people claim, like her brother said, that, yeah, she was quite taken with this guy, and, he was well off, so he was giving her expensive gifts, and he had a big fancy car called a Marmon, which was a slick car at the time. But the reality is that they only dated for a relatively short period of time. Now, when they dated was one of the key factors, as we find out later. But she really was in love with the doctor. And it took me a while to really figure out, like you said, the fact of the fiction. She had dated a few other men, maybe very short term, in her short time in San Diego. But it was mostly the doctor was the one that she was enamored with the most and had been with off and on for, not all that long after she got to San Diego. It was off and on, but it was pretty clear her feelings about him. His feelings may have been a little different, but so those are the two suspects.
Dr. Louis Jacobs, right? Is his name?
Correct.
Yeah.
Louis Jacobs. Yeah.
Louis Jacobs.
And the Rogers Clark.
Yeah. Rogers Clark. Yeah. Is the actor. So Dr. Louis Jacobs, although he's playing this, I guess we could call it a game with Fritzie. He's very noncommittal. He doesn't necessarily, want to, I love how you put it in the book. He doesn't necessarily want to solidify the relationship in any necessary way. As Fritzie's traveling from LA to San Diego, and then eventually makes plans to go up to San Francisco, she starts to get ill. She starts to have a bit of an illness that stops her from going to San Francisco. And she tells her friends as she's traveling that she's incurred an injury. And that's in quotes, an injury that keeps her from going to San Francisco. All this time, she's sending cables and wires back and forth to Dr. Jacobs. And they're kind of frantic. And her friends are noticing that she's depressed. But then she'll cheer up all of a sudden, but then she's depressed again. And it has to do with the tones that she's getting from Dr. Jacobs and these cables that she's getting from him. What exactly are these cables all about?
Well, that was really the first mystery in the book. She had been in LA for almost 2 months before her death. She returned to San Diego 1 week, almost exactly 1 week before her death. And she was acting strangely. She actually borrowed a real flapper's outfit, the beaded party dress and the hat with a feather in it and, all this other stuff. And she wore it on an overnight train ride to San Diego. So when her mother saw her mother went, "What are you doing? Where did that come from?" And, "Oh, I borrowed it from my good friend." "Why did you wear it on the train overnight?" It was really kind of strange, and took her mother aback. And the other strange thing about her behavior is she kept referring to Sunday night, the coming Sunday, which turned out to be the night of her death. And she said, "I'm going to a house party in Del Mar." If you're not familiar with San Diego, Del Mar is to the north. It's on the beach. It's a resort. It was just turning into a resort at that time. And it wasn't that far away from where her body was found. But she refused to say where it was exactly. She wouldn't say, I'm going to this, house, where the location was. And she refused to say who was taking her there. It was just a man from LA is going to take me to a house party in Del Mar. And she refused to say anything else. And her mother made a big deal out of the fact that she had never done that before. She had always been very upfront with her mother saying who I'm going to meet. And, her mother would write down the notes about the guy just in case something happened. You have to remember, dating as we know it now was absolutely brand new at this time. It was another post-World War I, attitude of the younger set at the time. Before that, if you wanted to get to know a young woman, a man had to go to her house under the supervision of her parents, probably in the next room. And, that's how you did it. You made house calls on her and, none of this dating stuff. But at this time, and part of it had to do with cars, people were starting to be able to afford automobiles and they didn't have to depend upon street cars like they used to. And so, now a guy would go pick up the woman at home and take her somewhere, to a jazz dance, to a speakeasy, to a hotel, to dinner, wherever, and Fritzie did all of that. But, her mother was extremely concerned about this. Obviously, her mother was fairly traditional, and we also didn't have birth control at that time. It was illegal, first of all, and abortion was illegal. So her mother was, extremely concerned about her getting into trouble. And she had every reason to be concerned about that. And so that was why her behavior seemed so strange to her mother. And then her mother just knew something was up that night and tried to keep Fritzie from going to this so-called house party. But she kept telling her mother, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And then her mother, next time her mother saw her was in the mortuary. So, it was a real tragedy.
Now, her mother had concerns that it might have been Rogers Clark, the actor that she was meeting up with, because she had a run-in with Rogers Clark one other time, didn't she?
She did not like him, at all. He was a ladies' man, whatever term you want to use for that. He chased women. It's just that simple. He was a playboy, and he was already married and getting divorced, and he was seeing all kinds of, always young. He was about 37 or so, and Fritzie was 20, and that was typical for Rogers Clark at the time. And he picked her up once in September, I think it was September or October, somewhere around there, of the previous year, and took her on a day trip to Tijuana. And her mother knew nothing good happened in Tijuana,
right?
Because unlike Prohibition, there was no prohibition in Tijuana. So, there was legal racetracks, legal drinking, and all kinds of mayhem that, you could get into there. So her mother didn't like the idea at all, didn't like the guy, sized him up pretty quickly in his fancy car. And she actually came up with an excuse for the guy to drop her off at the sanitarium where her daughter was actually being treated at the time. And that happened to be on the way south toward Tijuana. And she did it just to size the guy up. She jotted down notes of his description, physical description. And so immediately when she was shown the body of her daughter at the funeral home, she immediately screamed this guy's name. Rogers Clark murdered my beautiful little girl was the exact word she used. So she, up until later, she always believed that it was him from the beginning.
And I guess I could see where she would think that, I mean, she's got it predetermined in her head that it had to be Rogers Clark just based on his character. And the fact that, as a conservative woman, immigrant woman that's come from, from overseas, she had to think that all Hollywood people were degenerates and that, of course, it had to be him. It couldn't have been anybody else.
Right.
So let's fast forward a little bit to we've already started to go down that road of the day that Fritzie has disappeared and never to come back. You mentioned that, she says goodbye to her mother, tells her that she's going to a house party. She does something unusual though when she leaves her mother and says it's okay. She's going to meet a man. She doesn't give the name of the man, but says that where she's going, and originally says Del Mar, doesn't she?
Yes.
But then she calls her mother and says that the location is changing, which is unusual too. Right. But does give her the location. Unusual too that she does that. Right. Why do you suppose she does that?
That was one of the things I had a really hard time trying to figure out. She called her from downtown maybe 15 or 20 minutes after she left home, which was on the Sunday evening. And then said, it's that house party is not in Del Mar after all. It's in La Jolla, which was about 8 miles to the south of Del Mar, or 8 miles to the south of where her body was found, actually. And but again, she didn't give a specific location, but she said it was La Jolla. So this is also strange. Why do you change a house party's venue, at the last minute? It doesn't make any sense. So that was just another. Why she did it, I think she mostly wanted to allay her mom's fears. She knew how afraid for her mother was. And there's some question about how much her mother really knew about what was going on, because she said some contradictory things during the trial and stuff later on. But I think she mostly wanted to allay her fears. And, that was really the best I could come up with, because Fritzie also told some of her friends some different things, about the reality is it was all a cover for what she was really doing. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And I think she mostly wanted to allay her mom's fears. So there may have been more to it that I don't know about. I don't know. I don't know why La Jolla would have been a better location to tell her mom to Del Mar, but it turns out she did in fact go to La Jolla. So,
there could be a theory here too, James, and we'll go on this road here in just a moment, but I think maybe Fritzie is laying these little seeds with the people around her, the people she loves, to give them a clue without giving them a clue that, this isn't a house party I'm going to. I'm going to kind of take care of business without letting you know I'm going to take care of business. And should anything happen, you have a general location and where to look for me.
That's a very good point, Tim. That did occur to me, and I think it very well could be part of it. Because like I said, it's hard to know. I know at least one of her friends knew the whole story, the one who lived in Long Beach. She borrowed the flapper outfit from. But it's hard to tell what her mother and brother knew about her condition, as they always referred to it in the papers at the time.
Yeah.
Because at one point, her brother said, yeah, they knew about it. But later her mom said she didn't know about it. So it's really hard to tell. If her mom really knew or suspected where she was going, I suspect that very well could have been Fritzie's reason for giving a closer location to where she actually went. Very well could be. That's a very good point.
So we've hinted at it, I think, enough. You've said her condition, and we've mentioned the cables back and forth between her and Dr. Jacobs. So what exactly are in those cables between her and Dr. Jacobs?
Oh, part of the reason she was in L.A. was to get an abortion.
Okay.
Now, I don't think that was the whole reason why she went there. She went there for a career, but he was trying to arrange an abortion in LA. And it never happened. And as she grew more pregnant, she was actually 4 to 4.5 months pregnant when she died. She was obviously becoming more and more concerned about it. It was starting to show, I'm sure. And he just kind of diddled around. He couldn't seem to figure out how to do it, even though in LA that shouldn't have been a big problem, because it happened all the time, regardless of whether it's legal or not. And then for whatever reason, she actually threatened him. What was it, about 12 days, 9 or 12 days, I don't remember, before she died. She threatened him in a one-line telegram after a whole slew of other telegrams saying, you need to help me out here. You said you would. You've already lied to me about stuff. And basically she said, if I don't hear from you by tomorrow, I'm going to come to San Diego and I'm going to stop at nothing. Now, if you know what's going on, then that's kind of, a little vague. But in reality, what she's saying is I'm going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
Because you did this to me. I'm in this situation because of you. And it turns out he refused to marry her, which you don't find out until later. And she says, well, you at least have to help me with this. And, you're a doctor. You should be able to figure this out, right? And it would have been a huge scandal. An unmarried woman at this time, being pregnant was a big scandal in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Lots of families disowned their daughters, for this.
Yeah.
At the very least, they usually would send them away somewhere to have the child, and so it could be kept quiet, in their hometown. So it would have been a big scandal, and it would have ruined Dr. Jacobs for sure. He was a doctor. It was illegal to arrange an abortion. The fact that he had gotten a woman pregnant and then refused to do the honorable thing, as they said then, marry her, mm-hmm. which is what he should have done based on the times. And, it obviously upset her, this whole thing. She had every reason to be upset and depressed, and it had stretched on into months at this point. And she finally had enough. I'm going to come and stop at nothing if you don't fix this. If you don't do something for me like you said you would. And she would have revealed it to his employers, the public health service he worked for. Mm-hmm. He would have been fired for sure. He probably would have lost his medical license or come close to it. And we don't find out until the very end that he wanted probably to marry somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it would have ruined that for him as well. So, it would have been a big scandal, and he didn't want to have a big scandal. So, there's a big motive right there for you.
It's also interesting, James, you put it in the book and you put it so eloquently. Unmarried women at that time who were, quote unquote, in that condition are told one of two things. They're told either get that man to marry you or force him to marry you.
Right.
And if you have to force him by gunpoint, then do so.
Yeah.
And that just gives you an idea of the times. And
and women then had much fewer choices than they do now, obviously, just mm-hmm. with birth control, but also with the times, the Victorian moral code.
Yeah.
It takes two people to get pregnant, but the women are the ones that bore the whole burden of that. They really did.
Yeah.
And if he married her, fine, everything, I guess, was okay after that, assuming they actually cared about each other, which may or may not have been true. But if he didn't, what is she supposed to do?
Right.
Her only recourse was really to tell somebody and put pressure on him, because he didn't have to. There was no law that said he had to do it.
Right.
Right. She had no options whatsoever. Right. So no good options.
No.
So that was the situation Fritzie was in. And, it came out within the first week. Most of this was known, within the next day they found out she was pregnant, and that was in the They called it a delicate condition was the most polite euphemism for it in the papers. They never said she was pregnant. They never said she got pregnant out of wedlock. They never mentioned any of this stuff. I mean, you could read between the lines and see it was there, but it was a delicate condition or her condition. So yeah. So there's your motive. And it was a strong motive.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
And in the autopsy, because they had not one but two autopsies done, and I think if I remember right, it was because the family had some issues with the first autopsy. They determined that the fetus was 4, almost 5 months old at that point.
4 to 4.5 is what the doctor said. The autopsy was botched from the word go. The coroner, who was not a medical person, he was elected to the job, had been on the beach, when after her body was found. He personally delivered her body to one of the funeral homes in town, which is what they did then. He didn't have his own, they had no medical examiner facilities at all. So his autopsy surgeon, who was trained, actually Harvard grad in this case, performed the autopsies in the funeral homes. So you can imagine the problems that come up with that from a forensic science perspective. Well, the doctor, when he got there a few hours later, when after her body was discovered and delivered to the funeral home, when he got there, her blood was being drained. In preparation for embalming. It made no sense how that actually happened.
Right.
Even then, they knew that an autopsy was required.
Yes.
Now, either the coroner didn't tell the guy misunderstood, there was some kind of miscommunication, but he started embalming the body, the undertakers, they called them that. And so, later on, when the doctor was asked, does this present any problems for your findings from the autopsy? And he said, well, it hampers a man, or words to that effect. In reality, he didn't take blood or tissue samples to be tested to the extent that they could then for substances, and a lot of things they could. If she had been poisoned by cyanide, for instance, which was a common enough thing, he could have told, the lab could have told, almost certainly, and a number of other things. But he determined that she had drowned, in fact, which made sense. That was part of the reason why I think he didn't do as thorough an autopsy as he should have. In San Diego, when a body washes up on the beach, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be drowning. Right. I mean, that's how most people are found. She appeared to have drowned. There were some very strange things about the scene, but as far as the autopsy surgeon, the coroner was, she must have drowned. She did drown. We
should tell people a bit about the scene, because we're kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but because I did want to stress about how old the fetus was when Fritzie was found. Essentially, the night that Fritzie was killed, or I should say when she was found, which was essentially the next day, she was found by a family that was going out for a picnic. And they then went up the road to get somebody at a gas station who came out to make sure that, there was indeed a body on the beach, and it was Fritzie. At that point, everybody went stomping all over the crime scene, and to find things, and then the sheriff was called out, or the police were called out. But in that way, there were certain things that were found that were unusual on Fritzie's body. Let's talk a little bit about that first. And now, as you said, they did determine that she had drowned, but it was, in parentheses, a homicide. the reason for that, James, was what? There was one particular marking that was unusual.
Yeah, her body was found in an unusual posture, and the marking you're referring to, I'm sure, is she had a bruise over her right eye, which appeared, somebody hit her and then threw her in the waves to drown or something. That was the initial a thought of what had happened. But a lot of people thought it was a suicide, which a woman in her position at the time, suicide was not uncommon. She was, in fact, depressed. So if it had been a suicide, it wouldn't have been surprising. One of the things that was strange, though, was the position of her body. Drowning victims aren't usually found the way she was found. She was found parallel to the beach, embedded in the sand, left that way by the tide going out. And her feet were close together and her arms were laid across her body. Very unusual posture. Plus, the way she was dressed was unusual for a drowning victim. She was in a teddy, a pink silk teddy, stockings, and French pumps. That's what she was wearing. If she had drowned in the surf, she would have been missing most of that, or it would have been in disarray, and it wasn't.
Right.
Her shoes wouldn't have been on her feet, probably. So that was one of the first things that seemed very suspicious about it. They found her dress, that beaded brown dress she had borrowed from a friend, at the bottom of the embankment that led down from the road, from the highway there, like somebody had drug it across the sand, some several hundred feet from her body. And then 500 yards south, they found her handbag and vanity case that she had left home with. And it looked like it had been tossed out of a car, from the top of from the road level. And so that was strange, right? I mean, that doesn't sound like a suicide.
No.
So it was these strange circumstances of her body position and her stuff being strewn around. The next day, they actually found a bar pin from her outfit on the little parking area. There was only one place you could park at that time. Now you can park all up and down the road. But at that time, there was this one spot, and you can actually go, and the spot is still there. It's just like it was pretty much. And it was just a hard, flat surface next to right south of where the bridge was that crossed over the slough for this estuary. Okay. And they found a bar pin there. Well, that made sense, because if somebody had dumped her body, or if somebody had taken her to the site and she drowned herself, either way, that was the only spot you could park at for miles.
Yeah.
So it made total sense that's where. So this thing came off when she came out of the car. However she came out of the car, this bar pin came off then, and they found it there the next day. Of course, 100 people had trampled all over that by the time.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, when the cops first got there were no detectives at first. There was a deputy sheriff from Del Mar, and there was a couple of motorcycle cops. And then the coroner came. There was no detectives there that first day. But there was no kind of securing of the crime scene other than the cop said, I didn't let anybody touch, the dress, in which they presumed to be possibly some kind of evidence. And but there were civilians all over the beach searching up and down. And the coroner even enlisted them to say, we need to find something here, a hat, something else that we can use to identify this woman. Well, the only thing they had to identify her was in her vanity case, which they didn't find until an hour or two later. There were some pictures of a woman who resembled her. It was probably her sister, Helen. And there was a card in there that gave an address, and it said, I am Fritzie Mann. Now that was strange too. Why would she have this in her case? And there was a lot of speculation on that later. Yeah. And there was also some clips for Miss Fritzie Mann, her dance performances, in her vanity case. So that was how they identified her first, until later on her brother and mother identified her. And that was after she had already been embalmed. It was just that was the next morning, Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
So it was really, really a tragic scene.
Again, I maintain that she knew she was, it was kind of a, I guess for lack of a better term, a kamikaze mission. She knew it was all or nothing. She was going into, she
knew how dangerous what she was going to do that night.
Yeah.
And let's face it, she was going to get an abortion arranged by that doctor. And of course, he totally denied that. He claimed, I was trying to arrange her abortion when she was in LA, but she came here. I haven't seen her since Friday night. I didn't arrange an abortion here in San Diego. So that was his story.
Yeah.
And the cops the next day found out where they had been that night.
How did the Blue Sea cottages come into play here?
Well, about 2 days after her body was found, they had the cops canvassing all the places up and down the beach, from Del Mar to La Jolla, the resorts, the hotels, everything, trying to figure out where this house party was, or wherever she went. And one of the cops came across this place. He knew about it. It was called the Blue Sea Cottages. And at this time, they were doing, it was really becoming a tourist area. It was still fairly desolate at that spot, but they had these 28, 30 cottages that people would rent out. Tourists would rent them, but locals would also rent them for things like trysts or parties or, whatever. And that was how they found it. The guy went and asked the manager of the place, did, a woman come here, possibly accompanied by a man, on Sunday evening? Well, it turns out there was one. And they had signed in the register, Mr. and Mrs. Johnston, L.A. As we find out later, that was a pseudonym. So when the man signed in with her. Now, the manager, immediately recognized Fritzie's body when he saw it. He could not identify the man. They showed him a bunch of people. He refused to say one way or the other. I can't say. And the cops and the lawyers were trying to pressure him into saying, it was him. And the other defense lawyers were trying to get him to say, no, it was somebody else. And, but the bottom line is he was unreliable as far as a witness that night for most things. So there was still a big question of who it was. And it remained that way for the rest of the case.
It's crazy.
Remained a controversy.
I know at one point, and again, we don't want to give away the entire book for people. We want them to pick it up. We want them to read the rest of the book. I know at one point Rogers Clark is taken into custody because there are some unusual damage to his Marmon, his car.
Yeah.
He claims at one point a chicken did the damage, a chicken meaning a woman.
A woman.
Yeah. Right. That he had taken out on a date, and it was pre-Fritzie. We should point that out. That it was his gauges inside the car,
and there was also blood inside the car.
But he claimed,
the thing about Rogers Clark that made the cops really suspicious, in addition to her family saying it was him, was he was living in LA at the time, and he didn't turn himself in right away. He didn't go to the cops voluntarily. His name was all over the newspapers for a day or two, and he never contacted the cops, and they had to track him down. So the LAPD finally found him, at a hotel or near a hotel where he was staying, and took him down to the headquarters there. And then the police chief from San Diego went up there to interview him. So that was one reason it looked like he was about to flee too. He had cashed a big check. The detectives found his car, there's blood in it. There's, the gauges on the dash are broken. Turns out he was probably right about what happened to it, but it couldn't have been Fritzie. So it wasn't connected to the case, but it looked suspicious. And,
right.
The papers loved this. Now they had a Hollywood guy who they really tried to play up into being an actor. And, reality was that he was just kind of starting out doing, educational films for this small company. But they played it up that way. And so he looked guilty as hell, on Wednesday, Thursday, until Friday morning when he was let go. And Dr. Jacobs looked guilty as soon as all of those letters came out about what he had been up to with her in LA. Mm-hmm. But, there was enough doubt in the case that they couldn't pin it on him. So, well, they did, but they couldn't convict him of it. So it remained an unsolved case.
And there's little twists towards the end of the book. Again, we're gonna leave it at this point because we want you to pick up the book. We want you to read on further because there's some intriguing stuff at the end of the book that we want you to read as well. It really is fascinating. It's a fascinating case, James. That I tell you, I just wish that that Fritzie would have had a better life, Yeah.
She had a very tragic life, She had lost her father recently, a couple of years before.
Yeah.
Her sister was dying, and they all knew it. It was going to be soon, and because she was very sick, and probably dealing with her little sister's death probably hastened her end too. She would have died anyway, but it broke her heart. So that was probably part of the reason why she died so soon after Fritzie. And obviously her mother, this is, out of everybody, it's the most tragic for her mother. She lost her husband and their two daughters, and in a very short period of time, one of them very unexpectedly. So it's a very tragic story. And I try to tell it even-handedly and, present everything I could find. I don't hold anything back, and I didn't make anything up. It's all true as best as I could tell. I do some speculation, but it's educational speculation. So
there's even an entrance towards the end of the book of the Black Hand and the KKK, which is interesting. There's just so much interesting stuff that falls in to this case that you don't want to put the book down. The elements that enter into this case are so interesting, James, that you wonder how all these different groups play into just one woman's life that's so young.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could make a real good fiction out of this story. If you were to twist a few facts and use some of that stuff you were just talking about, play up the Hollywood angle. Yeah. You could make quite a very interesting story. It wouldn't even be that hard. Of course, in this book, this is narrative nonfiction. I feel strongly about being accurate as possible,
right?
Which is difficult when you're talking about a 100-year-old case and there's big gaps in the historical record. But, the other thing is I consider this narrative nonfiction. It happens to be about an old true crime. It's a little different than most true crime books. It covers the investigation and all of that stuff, but I really put emphasis on the time and place so that you understand the context of her death and how she got into trouble and how tragic it was. And, all of that played into it. The ghetto journalism, the Prohibition corruption affected the case, especially during the trial. The Hollywood angles had a big role in the case. And then the whole culture war thing had a big role in the case. It was going on between conservatives and liberals that looked almost exactly like what's happening right now. So I tried to emphasize the time and place because it was a fascinating time and place, and I wanted to give the full context of the crime.
Well, it's definitely an interesting time indeed, my friend. It's just tragic that a woman who seemed like she had so much control over her life and seemed like she was going places in a world where she wasn't deemed to go in those places, that she had no right to go in those places, but was making waves and was heading somewhere, was cut so short.
It really is. And it just shows you how you could get in trouble, and especially at a time when you had no options. And she was put into that situation where she had no options, and it's just very unfortunate because she very well could have gone on to have a big career. I mean, we'll never know for sure. She was known locally and to some extent in LA, but she could have really gotten big. She could have broken into Hollywood, and we would all know her name now. So yeah, it's very tragic. So
yeah. Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottage, a true story of murder in San Diego's jazz age, is available right now. It's available at wildbluepress.com. You can also get a copy at jamesstewartauthor.com. We'll have the links in the description of this program. You can click on those links and get a copy for yourself. I want to thank you so much, James, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
It was our pleasure indeed, sir. Folks, it's that time once again for us to bring in Beer City Bruiser, and it's time for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time once again. It's time for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals, and we bring in the host with the most. He's the BCB, the Beer City Bruiser. Bruiser, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, Tim. Got a little bit of a story to tell you.
Oh, yes, please do.
Getting ready for the gym today.
Okay.
I take my pre-workout, which gives me a nice, good, tingly feeling all over. So Mrs. Bruiser and I had to drop off the rental car we had. So I dropped that off, get home, take my pre-workout, tell her, give her a kiss on the cheek, say, hey, I'm going to go work out. She's like, all right, I'm going to cook dinner. I said, okay. I said, I'm recording with Tim later, so I want to get this workout in. Everything will be good.
Okay.
So I time it out so that when I leave the house, right when I get to the gym, that's when the pre-workout kicks in. That's when I'm ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
So I get to the gym, I walk up, and it's locked.
What?
Closed on Labor Day.
Oh.
As you know, we record on Mondays.
Yeah, that's right.
So I call Mrs. Bruiser and say, hey, gym's closed. She goes, but you took pre-workout. I says, yeah. She says, what are you going to do, run home? I said, no, I'll just use the energy for the podcast later when I record with Tim.
See, that's how it works. Yeah, you know, I sometimes forget, too, that the regular world takes holidays. I forget about that. Because somebody had asked me, well, yeah, you know, Monday, Labor Day, what are you going to do? I'm like, work. They're like, work? Well, are you going to go to the state fair? I'm like, no. You know, I told you I was going to try and make it out to see Diana Ross on Saturday. I never got out there, and it's probably a good thing I didn't, because evidently there was a dumb criminal out there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you're safe then.
Yeah. Evidently somebody went out there with a gun and started shooting it off.
I don't like Diana Ross, huh?
Not at Diana Ross. No. Although she might have been packing too. I mean,
I didn't think that crowd would be that rowdy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think people are licking off shots at a 78-year-old. I think it was out on near the fairway. Of course, It's always out near the rides, but but it was right around 10 o'clock, which would have been when the concert's getting out.
Oh. Well, I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah, thanks. But I was kind of under the weather on Saturday. I get up early on some Saturdays to go up to St. Cloud, and I was up at about 3:30 in the morning. I went up to St. Cloud, did my shift, came home. Of course, I got to stop off at Jelly Bean and Julia. So of course, I did that. Got ye old brisket. And by the way, I gotta send a little shout out to my man Corey over there, who was under the weather this past week. He had a bit of pancreatitis, which that's
not good.
No, not good at all. So, but he's out of the hospital now and he's doing better. So while he was in the hospital, I just went over and I bought a little brisket for the cause. Put it that way.
There you go.
So
everybody must be feeling a little under the weather. Mrs. Bruiser was feeling a little bit under the weather.
Yeah.
When we were in Tennessee there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of continued today, to be honest with you. I wasn't really with it today either. So I was kind of contemplating it, and I thought, do I really want to? I mean, Diana Ross is a legend, and I'm sure she doesn't have a lot of tours lined up for the next few years. But I just was like, you know what? This would be one of the only years in the last 20 that I can remember that I won't be out at the state fair this year.
Really? Okay. This is the second year I haven't wrestled at a state fair.
Really?
Yes.
Does it feel weird to you?
It feels extremely weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last year, 4th of July was the first time I had never wrestled on the 4th of July. And our youngest daughter, who was still at the house, had done her thing with her friends, and Mrs. Bruiser and I went and saw some fireworks. Like, this is weird. I'm not sore. I'm not beat up. Like, we're at home.
Yeah. I mean, I thank God for, speaking of 4th of July, I thank God for our neighbors kitty corner from us, because I'm one for the pandemic. During the pandemic, we had our own $500,000 fireworks show, like just kitty corner from us. He's got his own 4-mortar rocket launcher.
Nice.
So we got our own custom fireworks display right kitty corner from us. But they don't interfere with them. The cops never come around, because the mayor is just right down the road too.
So he's enjoying the fireworks too.
Oh yeah, so we all get to enjoy it. But
when we were driving home, we passed a county fair.
Really?
And we contemplated on whether or not they have the area for contestants and exhibitors and whatnot. And we contemplated pulling up and going, yeah, we're here with the wrestling. See if we can get in for free. But we didn't.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Now, I got a question for you. Is it ever a thing where you can just drop in on a promoter and say, hey, you got an extra spot? I'll give you the friends and family rate.
You can do that. I have done that in the past. I've randomly shown up and they've asked, hey, you got your gear with you? I say, hey, you got money on you? Let's do this. Huh. But 9 times out of 10, if I have off, I enjoy being off. And if I go to a show, it's usually because Mrs. Bruiser wants to go to the show, not me.
Ah, okay.
So when we go, it's more wanting to see my friends and hang out and see people I haven't seen in a while. And 9 times out of 10, though, the promoter will go, hey, do you have your merchandise with you? Go ahead, you can set up a table, and they let me sell pictures and whatnot.
Okay.
But I've had a few times where they're, hey, can you help us? We'll give you this date. You just come out and we'll set it up. Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody ever, I shouldn't say nobody ever just calls me up and says, hey, can you randomly do a show on short notice? But I did have what's nice is, I don't know if it's out yet, but I recently did, this past week, I did Jerry Pauly's Hillbilly Horror Stories.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, so that should be coming out shortly.
Well, when I did that show that you came to up in Minnesota, that was a short notice show. I found out, I think a week before, and I told you, hey, I'm up in your area on this day. That was literally a short notice. Hey, are you available this date? Can you do it for this much money? And I was like, yeah, I'm available. Let's do it.
There you go.
And then I right away messaged you, and we got to see each other and hang out. And
that was nice. Yeah, it was.
That's the other reason I do stuff like that. Especially if I have a friend in the area that I don't get to see a lot in person. Yeah. I'll take it. Because then it's like, okay, I'll show up a few hours early, hang out.
Yeah.
Or stay a few hours after or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a nice surprise. It was fun to see you that night. That's for sure.
Had a horrible match.
I was a little worried about you that night.
Right out. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a rough one, Tim.
Especially when I took photos of that one particular throw that I thought maybe you might have broke your hip or back on.
Yeah.
That was a little rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was worth it because I had to hang out with you. So
yeah, it was most definitely, most definitely. Well, Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, Bruiser is one of those rough throws this week. It'll stick with you.
It will. Huh?
It will for a little while. We've got a few stories that'll make you laugh. We got a few stories that'll make you cringe. I may give you a choice as to which you want to hear first. We may start out a little funny and then get into a little cringeworthy stuff and then end up funny, I think is what we'll do today.
We'll do a sandwich.
That's right. We'll do a cringe sandwich here.
Yes.
Little cringe meat in the middle. That didn't sound right, I know.
No, that didn't. That sounded really bad, actually.
It did, yeah. A little cringe meat in the middle. We'll start out in Florida because that's what we're want to do. This woman asked to be busted, and the cop granted the request. You know, if you go to a cop and say, would you bust me? Chances are the cop is going to say yes.
Yeah, this is a nice police officer.
Yeah.
You know, they're protect and serve, right? It's right there in the title.
That's right. It also helps if you have drugs on you.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah. Chelsea Leahy went up to a cop and said, will you bust me? I happen to have drugs on me. And the cop was like, oh, sure. Are you kidding me? Florida woman's behind bars on a felony narcotics charge after she allegedly approached a cop and asked, can you arrest me? I have drugs on me.
And she went with the felony, too. It wasn't even a misdemeanor. Like, she went hard.
Oh, well, you know, do it. If you're going to do it up, my friend, do it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This, according to a court filing, police were handling a call last Tuesday, outside a St. Petersburg bar when Chelsea Leahy, only 30 years young, oh, you got to love it when they're young and dumb, reportedly requested to be busted by a corporal with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Leahy, investigators say, removed 2 small baggies from her pockets and handed them to the cop, saying that they contained methamphetamine.
Oh, of course they did.
Yeah. Well,
you think it was they were there for something else, and she saw him walk in and went, well, I guess I'm got to be honest now. They're here. Like,
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's how it went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they walk in and she just put her hands up in the air right away. And they're like, what are you doing? We're here for a fight?
Yeah, we're actually trying to rescue a kitten out of a tree. I don't know why you're handing us meth, but a field test on the substance returned a positive result for meth, according to a criminal complaint, which notes that Leahy showed an indication of drug influence. You don't say.
Do you think that when they tested it and it came back positive, she went, I told you so, guys. Like, why would I lie to you?
Yeah. What, did you think you were going to get baking powder?
I'm an honest drug user.
There's an odd thing. An honest drug user. Leahy was arrested for possession of a controlled substance, a felony. Cops say the meth weighed about 2 grams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She's going hard.
Yeah.
She wanted the whole bar to be on the cloud 9 with her.
That's right. As opposed to Lou Graham, who sings with Foreigner. Leahy is being held in the county jail in lieu of $750 bond. The rap sheet, that only $750 bond.
Well, she was honest. Honesty gets you far.
Well, I guess so. Her rap sheet includes convictions for narcotics possession, theft, tampering with a motor vehicle, forgery, and leaving the scene of an accident. But she's honest about it. And that's what counts.
I still think they showed up for something else, and she just put her hands in the air and went, I have drugs on me. You caught me.
Hey, you know what? You got me. I know you were across the street doing something totally different, but you got me. And here it is.
You're here ordering chicken wings? Well, here's some meth with your chicken wings. Arrest me.
Officers, I know you're having dinner, but you got me. You figured me out. You remember back a few months ago, we were talking about the drunken joyrider in Walmart?
Oh, yes. And then ever since that story, every week we've had something happen at Walmart with drunk people.
Right. Well, it turns out that drunken Sunday morning joyrider on a motorized shopping cart inside of Walmart is going to cost that Florida man 2 months behind bars.
Oh, he got convicted, huh?
He did. He got sentenced.
Okay.
40-year-old Aaron Gregory was arrested in late July for haphazardly driving a Walmart scooter down the aisles, running into shelves and displays, and creating a danger for other patrons by almost striking them with the scooter. How hard could you hit somebody with one of those, really?
I don't know. I remember a time when Mrs. Bruiser, right after her third hip surgery, we were in a store and she had the cart. She had her crutches in the cart, and she kind of took a corner a little too tight.
Yep.
And the crutch hit the end display of some chips and stuff.
Okay.
And they just went everywhere. And I turned to look to see what happened, and I turned back, and they got to go pretty fast because she was about 4 aisles down going, I ain't picking it up. Nobody saw that.
But yet, you know, I have my own, not like I'm bragging, I have my own personal scooter,
Okay.
which goes much faster than the ones at the store.
Yeah.
And I can get up to 6 miles an hour, Bruiser.
So these probably go about 3 or 4. It still hurt if you got hit with it.
Yeah, they're much heavier. They're the ones,
and they got the wire basket too. You gotta think.
Yeah.
So there's pain there.
There's more surface area to get hit with. The ones at the store.
Yes. You know, with those rascal ones, like the ones you're describing, you cannot do flaming burnouts with them.
Give me time.
No. I have scientific proof. The scientific proof is my father-in-law before he passed. He had 2 of them.
Okay.
So he loved to mess with my wife. He lived for that. He lived to just anger her, and not like in a malicious way.
Okay.
So granted, anytime the grandbabies stayed by him, she'd say, don't let him have soda, don't let him have ice cream. Next morning we'd show up and they'd be hopped up on soda and ice cream. As a grandfather should, right?
Yeah.
So this particular time, he wanted to show his young grandson, my son, what a flaming burnout is. So we got the 2 scooters, parked them next to each other, got some starter fluid and started spraying the wheels and lit them on fire. No flaming burnout. And Mrs. Bruiser comes walking out. What are you guys doing? Just started yelling, and there's good old, my father-in-law just chuckling away. You
didn't melt the wheels, did you?
No, we put them out before. She put them out before we could, and then she educated us that we could have melted the wheels, and we could have, Then she was the common sense to the whole thing about what could have went wrong, but. Who thinks of that?
Common sense.
Exactly. You get it.
Yeah. Come on. We're having fun here.
Yeah. That's what you know what? That's the exact quote that he said to her.
Right. Well, he's right.
I think the other was insurance will pay for a new one.
That's right. Well, back then, yeah. I mean, they don't pay for it now.
Yeah, this is 2010, I think, 2012.
Yeah, they stopped paying for that exact reason, because seniors all over the United States were trying to do flaming burnouts with their scooters.
Or get drunk and driving through Walmart with them.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there's too much fun to be had with mobility aids. You ought to see what you can.
Government calls them mobility aids. We call them a fun Saturday night.
That's right. You ought to see what you can do with walkers. Yeah, just saying. You turn them upside down, you can have fun for 4.
Oh yeah.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I know. It's a thinking joke. You really got to think about that one.
No, I got it.
Okay.
It's like how do you sit 4 people on one stool?
That's right. When cops arrived at the Walmart in Melbourne around 10 a.m. on July 24th, Gregory was so intoxicated that he could barely stand on his own. That's why he had the scooter.
My question to you, Tim, is 10 in the morning. Did he stop drinking and restart? Or was this an all-night thing? Or was it just a morning thing?
A continuation.
Yeah, you think he started the night before and just...
Yeah. He might have stopped. You know what we used to call it in college? We used to call it cartoon cocktails.
Cartoon cocktails? Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So you're drunk from the night before. You take a slight break to kind of get your wits about you. Yeah. And then the cartoon's around. So you go, what goes good with Count Chocula? Beer. And so you just throw your favorite beverage in with your cereal. I'm
a fan of Honey Nut Cheerios with a nice Miller Lite.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. See?
Yeah, that was delicious.
Yeah. Search of his backpack located an open bottle of Smirnoff vodka, because nothing goes good with it's a pairing. Like you would pair wine and cheese. Yep. We like to pair our department stores with a good vodka.
Oh, okay.
So it's a nice Smirnoff with a nice Walmart.
Okay.
Gregory was busted for driving under the influence, disorderly intoxication. I still laugh at the fact that you can be busted for driving under the influence with a scooter, but I guess it can happen. Disorderly intoxication and possession of an open container of alcohol. The Walmart scooter, which can approach, I have never seen one approach 10 miles an hour, but they're saying that it can happen.
Way.
I think they're full of shit. Is considered a motor vehicle.
I believe that, but I don't see it going 10 miles an hour.
No, I've never had one hit 10 miles an hour. And I've tried.
Like, why would they make it that strong? There's no way someone's reaching 10 miles an hour in a Walmart. There's
Never.
not enough room.
People walk faster than Walmart scooters.
Yeah.
And there's nobody speed walking through a Walmart. Believe me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've tried to get people to speed walk through a Walmart. It doesn't happen.
No.
You can't clip anybody's heels in a Walmart.
No, you can't.
Prosecutors subsequently charged Gregory with only the disorderly and open container wraps, to which he yesterday pleaded no contest. A judge found Gregory guilty of both charges and sentenced him to 60 days in jail and ordered him to pay $522 in fines and court costs. Judge Aaron Peacock, yes, Judge Peacock, also banned Gregory.
I love that Judge's app. It's a great app.
It's a wonderful app. Barred Gregory from returning to the Walmart or crime scene for 6 months. But if he does, he needs to bring enough vodka for everybody. That's the deal there.
Some cartoon cocktails for everybody.
That's right. He needs to. Although, what cereal goes good with Smirnoff? I suppose any, really. Oh, you know what would be awesome?
What if it's flavored Smirnoff? Then you can get like a Fruit Loops.
Oh, that'd be good. I was going to go Frankenberry. You go a little.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because then it adds a little bit of strawberry kick to it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, Tim at darknessradio.com. Let's go cartoon cocktails. What's your favorite alcoholic beverage / cereal combination?
I like that idea. Mm-hmm. I'm in for this.
We want to know what cartoon cocktails you've partaken in.
Yes.
And then,
like I said, mine's Honey Nut Cheerios and Miller Lite. That's
pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that one. Grain and grain. You got to match your grains there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I like your idea of Frankenberry and Smirnoff because that makes it a strawberry flavor. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frankenberry is the not as popular one of the three either.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people. A lot of people like the Blueberry or the Count Chocula.
I'm a Blueberry guy.
Yeah.
I used to buy at least 10 boxes every October.
Oh, it's coming out.
I would eat so much Blueberry that my poo would come out that greeny.
That green.
Yeah. So I had
you
to switch to Count Chocula to make it regular again.
Yeah. You got to get your color content on point.
Yep.
You've gone over the line when sweet Jesus, when you come up looking like you've swallowed the Hulk. Yeah, you gotta get yourself back regular at one point or another.
See, now could that be almost like a blackberry brandy? You think with the blueberry?
It could. Blackberry brandy and blueberry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we gotta limit too. Like you can obviously take flavored vodka and put it with the flavored cereal, so that's too easy.
Yeah.
Like we gotta think. I don't know. Yeah, this is. I'm curious to see what the listeners say.
Yeah.
Send your cosmic cocktail or cartoon cocktails.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a great segment.
Yeah. Cartoon cocktail suggestions to Tim at darknessradio.com. We'll read them on next week's show.
Yes, definitely.
We want to know what you think. Or which ones you've done personally.
Yeah, I always like hearing that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we get new ideas.
That's right. I mean, what else are we going to try?
Exactly.
We don't want to know what you personally fed to your children. That's a felony. But we do want to know. We do want to know which ones you've tried personally.
At some point in time, someone decided to stick a vodka bottle in a watermelon and let it sit overnight.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And then
now you got a drunken watermelon.
Oh, those are so good.
They are.
My sister makes these amazing Jell-O shots every 4th of July. That's the whole reason I look forward to the 4th of July.
Yeah. I have a buddy who he makes a really good apple cider moonshine.
Oh.
And it's you don't taste the alcohol. We did it before a underwater needlepoint show where he had brought it in. We had the red Solo cup, so everyone pours it and we all toast.
Yep.
And I slammed the whole thing, and his wife looks at me and goes, "Oh, honey, no, no, that's pure alcohol."
Oh no!
And I said, "No, it's not. Like, you can't taste the alcohol." She goes, "Yeah, I know, but no." About 10 minutes later, I was like, "Okay, this is good."
Yeah, not feeling pain
Great.
tonight. Nope.
Let's just punch me in the face and make me say, "Sally."
And that night, there was no pain felt by anyone. That's right. The magical elixir. Yippers. Yeah, sometimes you can get some. There's an apple pie moonshine that they pass around phenomenology out in the Pennsylvania area. I miss that convention. Yeah,
I love a good apple pie.
Oh, it's so good. Oh. So good. Yeah, but that's the same way. You just can't taste it. You can't taste the alcohol. It's so good. Yeah.
In fact, I should hit him up because he's probably starting to create it now. He usually makes it right before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Right before Halloween, Thanksgiving is when he starts making these batches. He starts letting it brew and stuff now. So I'll have to reach out to him, see if he can mail it to me.
Oh, that's so good.
Send you some too.
Oh, you're the best.
There it is, apple pie and Apple Jacks.
Oh, that would be amazing. Apple pie moonshine and Apple Jacks.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Cartoons
that would be delicious.
Cartoons would never look the same.
No, they wouldn't. They would be amazing. They already are amazing.
You probably fall asleep in front of the TV after half an hour.
No. If I'm watching some Looney Tunes, I'm up all night.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Some of that old Bugs Bunny where he's putting the elixir on Elmer Fudd's head and massaging it in. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, that's true. Those cartoons never get old. That's true.
Yeah.
Very true. We head to Las Vegas, where a woman allegedly claims she was arrested because cops had never seen anyone so pretty.
Really?
Oh, well, I guess.
Beauty is getting you arrested nowadays. Tim, you better watch out.
I know.
You and I, if we ever go to Vegas.
We're done.
Yeah.
We step off the plane and into a holding cell, my friend. We might as well just do that.
Never mind how drunk we probably are, right?
Well, that may have something to do with it. A couple 14, 15 cocktails on the plane. A 28-year-old woman who allegedly dined and dashed at the airport claims she was being harassed by cops because they had never seen anyone as pretty as her.
And they're in Vegas, so she obviously hasn't been to Vegas much.
No, not at all. According to police report cited by KLAS TV, Hend Bustami reportedly went to Chili's at the Las Vegas airport. Boy, big spender there.
Yeah, 2 for $20.
Yep. But left without paying.
Got to do that.
How many margaritas at the Chili's airport do you have to down without paying?
4 of those El Presidentes.
Yeah, exactly. Restaurant employees called police and officers searched for her, but could not locate her in the vicinity. She's probably pissing away those El Presidentes is what she was doing. The police report says TSA officials told officers a female matching that description was observed sleeping near the security checkpoint, hindering their operations.
Of course.
Somebody can't hold her liquor.
Go find a place to lay down.
Oh, yeah.
I've slept in airports numerous times. It's not hard.
KTNV-TV, which also cites the police report, says Bustami allegedly left before police arrived, but she was found at a baggage carousel.
I just picture her sleeping, going around in a circle.
Well, sometimes that's relaxing, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Get on one of those and you just go around and around and around. She then reportedly became belligerent with officers and started saying she was being harassed because cops had never seen anyone as pretty as her.
Oh, I'm going to earn some bonus, but watch this. She's obviously never met Mrs. Bruiser.
Oh, look at that.
If I can convince her to listen to this, I get some bonus points.
See? Bustami allegedly... Obviously, there's no response in the background, is there?
I can't. She's
She's not
eating. She's eating ice cream right now.
Yeah, she's
looking as beautiful as ever. She better not go to Vegas.
That's right.
Get arrested.
Boy, you're still working that angle, aren't you?
I have to, man.
I see that. Bustami allegedly said she was going to spit on all the police officers because they perverts and were trying to rape her.
She can spit on all of them, huh?
Yep, she's going to spit on all of them because the cops had never seen anyone as good looking. Boy, I don't think you're winning any fans there.
No, she's going the complete opposite route.
Yeah. You might want to charm them a little bit before you spit on them.
I don't think she knows how to flirt. I think she's getting this flirting thing just all wrong.
Yeah. You want to be a little sweet at first.
Yes.
And say, well, Mr. Officer, I know you've never seen anybody as fine as me.
Yeah.
But here, take a look.
Yeah.
Hey, there's
a little shake, you know?
Yeah. Little shimmy.
Yeah.
Little, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Instead of a little Iron Sheik. Jabroni. She was booked into the Clark County Detention Center where her bail was set at $1,000. That's it. Evidently,
that's it. Well,
they wanted,
beauty costs a lot, you know.
They wanted her the F out of town, I guess. KLAS reports she reportedly had a warrant out for her arrest out of Las Vegas Municipal Court.
Well, of course, because she's so beautiful.
Well, yeah. It was
so beautiful, they put a warrant out for her.
It was a beauty warrant. Yeah.
There's no picture of her, is there? Because I'm hoping it's like me in a dress.
No, she's so beautiful. The camera broke when they tried to take a picture of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got more teeth than her, right?
Yes, you do. You're actually more beautiful than she is.
It's the beard. I have a better beard, don't I? You
do, yes. She doesn't maintain her beard as well as you do. Plus, after all those El Presidentes, I look more beautiful than she does.
I was going to say, you give enough El Presidentes and anybody looks good.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
There's always the last call person in a bar. And that's when you're single and you go into a bar, you look at somebody and go, I'm going to start with that person, hit on them. And then that person right there is my last call person. So when they call last call and the lights come on, that's my go-to.
And this lady, this Hen Bustamante, Bustami or whatever her name is, she's the they're locking the doors. That's who she was.
Yes.
Yeah, they're locking the doors. Okay, what are you doing later?
I see you're by yourself.
Mm-hmm. I see you have a car.
What?
I need a lift home.
You have an Uber app. Can we go?
Yeah. It's either you or a serial killer. Let's take a chance, shall we? Boy. Yeah. Okay, this next story is just strange. We're getting into strange territory here. Not like the last one wasn't strange, but we're getting into stranger territory here, Bruiser.
Okay.
Man with a fascination with mass school shootings allegedly places dead animals on a Parkland memorial.
Oh, okay. What?
Here,
so confused.
Here, evidently, in his booking photo, is a man who wanted to be the ultimate warrior.
No, I think he was trying to be Batman, but forgot to put his mask on.
Yeah, well, that too.
Like he's got some really bad Halloween makeup on.
Really bad. That's a tattoo, my friend.
That's a tattoo?
That's a tattoo.
Oh, that's a horrible tattoo.
Yeah.
That's the third week in a row we've had a guy with a horrible face tattoos.
Oh, it's horrible, all right.
Look, I'm not against face tattoos, ladies and gentlemen. Like, if you want to get a tattoo on your face, go ahead. But go to a really good artist. Pay the extra money to get that really good work done.
Yeah.
So that you don't get mugshots like that.
Oh, yeah. We go to Parkland, Florida, where a 29-year-old man was arrested and charged after allegedly defacing a school shooting memorial with dead animals.
He should have been arrested for defacing his own face.
Yeah. On July 20th, a school crossing guard found a deceased duck on a bench at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Memorial Garden outside the school with its chest cavity cut open. This according to the Broward County Sheriff's Office. The next day, on July 21st, the school crossing guard reportedly found a dead raccoon on the same bench. And on July 31st, a deputy discovered a dead opossum. You call it an opossum, I'll call it a possum, in the same location. According to the sheriff's office, detectives used surveillance video and saw a white Nissan with black rims drive up toward the memorial on July 30th, shortly after 11 p.m. A male driver reportedly exited the vehicle and was seen walking to the passenger door of his car. He allegedly went to the memorial before driving away. The same Nissan was seen on July 31st by a deputy, and it was pulled over for a traffic stop. According to the sheriff's office, the person in the car, Robert Mondragon, allegedly had bird feathers and blood on the front passenger side floorboard of his vehicle and told the deputy he had it there because he likes the metal and blood smell that emit from the dead animal.
Oh, I'm glad they got him off the streets. That's a serial killer if I ever heard of one.
I'll take Psycho for 500, Alex.
Yes.
Yeah. Upon further investigation, the sheriff's office said they learned Mondragon intentionally placed the dead animals on the Parkland school shooting memorial, and he had a disturbing fascination with mass school shootings. Authorities reportedly recovered his phone and found a photo of Mondragon holding the dead duck with its chest cavity cut open, along with a photo of a dead raccoon on the floorboard of his car. According to the sheriff's office, Mondragon's facial tattoos resemble those of Tate Langdon, the character from the television series American Horror Story, based on the Columbine High School massacre.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a little deep.
Yeah.
Upon further search of Mondragon, investigators reportedly found text and online searches about school shooters, how to break into steel doors, shootings involving numerous victims, pipe bombs, and slang terms for killing cops.
Yeah, this guy really needs to be locked up for a long, long time in a mental hospital.
Yeah. 2 weeks before the end of the 2021-22 school year, Mondragon allegedly walked the path from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School to Walmart, the same path the MSD school shooter walked on February 14th of 2018. Mondragon was arrested and charged with removing or disfiguring a tomb or monument, violation of probation for battery and indecent exposure, and violation of a risk protection order. According to the sheriff's office, he remains held without bond, as he probably should be.
Yeah, and he needs to go to a mental hospital. He needs medication.
Yeah, most definitely.
Because that's just going to escalate. I just see that escalating bad. Oh,
yeah. It already has if he's killing animals and leaving them out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the first or second of the trifecta.
Yeah. He's well on his way. We come over here to Minneapolis, where a woman is accused of accidentally shooting and killing her boyfriend during an argument.
Okay.
And you'd never guess how.
With a gun?
Yeah, but in the most unusual way. She claims she just handed it to him.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, you're just innocently in an argument. You just hand somebody a gun and they die.
Here, hold this while I pull the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. A 39-year-old woman was arrested and charged after allegedly fatally shooting her boyfriend by accident during an argument. According to WCCO TV on Monday, August 29th, the shooting happened on the 2400 block of Cole Avenue Southeast. Janice Hawkins Green reportedly told police she shot her boyfriend by accident in the stomach and that the gun went off while she was trying to hand it to him. I don't know how that happens.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I've heard different stories where people say that, and they're always proven wrong.
Yeah. You put the safety on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most current guns nowadays don't go off by themselves.
They don't. Yeah. Upon their arrival, officers found the victim covered in blood with a gunshot wound to his abdomen, according to KSTP TV. First aid was reportedly attempted, but the victim later succumbed to his injury at the hospital. In an interview, Hawkins Green told investigators that she and the victim had been dating for 2 years and began to argue. She allegedly told her boyfriend to gather his things and leave. Then she grabbed her boyfriend's sweatshirt and a gun from her car. Hawkins Green reportedly said that as she was handing the gun to her boyfriend, She was holding it with the barrel facing toward her boyfriend to prevent it from going off and shooting herself. Well, that's considerate.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Why is it loaded? Why you have a loaded gun?
Yeah.
There's so much wrong with this. Like,
right.
Neither one clearly took a gun safety training course.
Right. After the shooting, KSTP reports that the victim's 15-year-old daughter placed the gun underneath a bed and officers recovered it from the scene. Hawkins Green was arrested and booked into Hennepin County Jail for murder and second-degree manslaughter. She was scheduled to appear in court actually a couple of days ago. I don't have an update on the story, however. So there you go.
Yeah, you don't hand a gun barrel first. You don't hand a loaded weapon to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't hand it with the safety off. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah. Take the clip out. Take the bullets out.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just certain things that make sense. Yeah. We move on. A couple is accused of strangling a man, dragging him with a dog leash, and hanging him from a tree branch.
Oh, it's a typical Thursday.
Sounds like an accident to me.
Yeah.
We can move on from here.
Yeah, let's go.
We go to Oklahoma City, where an 18-year-old woman and her 20-year-old boyfriend are accused of killing a man at a homeless camp by strangling him with a leash and hanging him from a tree. According to the Oklahoma City Police Department, on Saturday, August 27th at 8:15 a.m., officers responded to a call at a homeless camp near Northwestern Avenue and John Kilpatrick Service Road and found a person dead from injuries consistent with homicide. Investigators identified Sierra McCoy Griffin and James Guillory as suspects and arrested them on suspicion of murder. Oklahoma City Police Department Sergeant Dylan Quirk told KFOR-TV that there was some type of romantic relationship between the victim and one of the suspects, and then the two suspects currently. Quirk said an argument allegedly began over some property or a dog that led to the death of one person. Guillory's father, however, told KOKH-TV Guillory allegedly killed the victim in self-defense because he tried to rape McCoy Griffin. According to court documents cited by KOTV-TV,
KOTV-TV,
McCoy Griffin and Guillory went to the homeless camp and confronted the victim, who they identified as 51-year-old Jeff Scrivanik. Guillory allegedly strangled Scrivanik, but then saw he was still alive, so he allegedly dragged Scrivanik using the leash and hanged him on a branch. Guillory allegedly strangled Scrivanik a total of 3 times.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's grisly.
I know the movies make it look easy, but it's actually pretty hard to strangle somebody.
Yeah, it's a tough death, that's for sure.
But they said self-defense. That doesn't sound like self-defense at all to me.
No. The court documents reportedly say Guillory tied the leash in a manner which held the victim's neck off the ground to ensure Scrivanik's death. Quirk told KOTV Scrivanik died from blunt force trauma. Oklahoma City police reportedly found McCoy Griffin at a hotel and during a search of the room discovered notes detailing their plans for Scrivanik's killing. Oh, that's premeditated then. That's self-defense.
That's very premeditated, yep.
Yeah. McCoy Griffin and Guillory were booked into the Oklahoma City jail and denied bond.
Yeah, that's definitely homicide. Premeditated, first degree.
Yeah. We normally don't report on things having to do with young children, but this is an unusual story, Bruiser.
Okay.
A young child's severed leg was found on a conveyor belt at a Bronx sanitation plant.
Ow. Well, how did that get there?
That's a good question. We go to the Bronx in New York, where a worker at a sanitation plant in New York City reportedly discovered a severed leg as it passed on a conveyor belt at a local sanitation plant. New York Police Department officials confirmed to WPIX-TV that the leg, which was found Wednesday, August 31st, was cut from the knee down. WABC-TV reports the body part was found at a water pollution plant within the Department of Environmental Protection in the Bronx.
I wonder if he was looking at the conveyor belt. Well, that doesn't belong here.
Oh, that's unusual. How did that get in the toilet? Video was provided by WABC shows several NYPD cars and investigators at the scene. According to NBC New York, the medical examiner's office sent officials to investigate, and the office will determine whether the leg belongs to a child. One day after the discovery, officials reportedly found a second leg in the early hours of Thursday morning. NBC New York reports police believe there could be a link between the two discoveries and are continuing the investigation. WABC says the remains are reportedly those of a young child or a newborn.
I don't think it's a coincidence there's two in the same day. I'm pretty sure that's the same body. Like they said we might think these are connected. No, I'm pretty sure they are. If you have a left and a right.
Yeah, then you have a matching set.
Yeah. Unless for some reason there's a child out there that one's missing his left leg and one's missing his right leg, and they just happen to not bump into each other. Right.
Yeah, bizarre story out of New York.
That is. It's sad if it's a child was injured, but I'm pretty sure they're together.
Yeah. Speaking of bizarre stories, there's a lawsuit out there started by a middle school bully.
A bully, okay. That's unusual.
Who started a kill her petition.
Is that legal?
Evidently it is. Ellery Irons was awarded $1 million by a Los Angeles jury.
Wait, they won?
I guess. When Ellery Irons was 13, she says she was badly bullied by a trio of students at her middle school and that the El Segundo Unified School District did nothing to protect her. A Los Angeles County Superior Court jury agreed. The district was last week ordered to pay the now 18-year-old $1 million in damages. The resolution of her lawsuit filed in 2019. In that suit, Irons alleged she was bullied, tormented, and verbally assaulted from November of 2017 to June of 2018, and that one student involved started a petition called Let's Kill Ellery Irons.
Okay, so she was the victim. She wasn't the bully.
Right, she was the victim, not the bully.
Okay, so that I agree with. That's okay then.
But her bully started a petition.
Yeah, that's not okay.
No.
That is wrong. And I think anybody that signed that petition needs to be investigated.
Yeah. The suit says teachers learned of the petition, but did not alert Irons' parents.
Oh, come on. Do your job.
Yeah. Per NBC News, the suit also specified the bullying included verbal harassment, spreading nasty rumors, and text messaging, mean comments directly to Irons. The teen suffered PTSD, cut herself, and sought refuge in the school nurse's office nearly every lunch break, said her attorney in a news release cited by the Los Angeles Times. Attorney Krista Ramey added that Irons' parents did eventually seek help from El Segundo Middle School administrators and a counselor there, but found the situation was waved off as drama over a teen love triangle.
The school just didn't want to take responsibility is what it was.
Right.
That's the sad thing. Like, it's schools nowadays, if they hear there's a bully, they try to pass it off like, oh, no, it's just kids being kids. Exactly. That's just the children being children.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the sad part indeed.
Yeah.
Her father alleges that the school initially told him it had alerted police about the death threat on June 13th, 2018, but says police subsequently told him they were contacted by the school the following day, just minutes before a scheduled meeting he had with the then principal. Irons and her father did speak to El Segundo police. Per a police report, Irons and her dad informed them the student who created the petition solicited signatures at lunch.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. That student and a person who signed were suspended, but no credible threat was uncovered by police.
That's terrible. My son, one time, I got called into the office because my son got into a fight. And I asked what the fight was over, and the principal told us that he beat up another child because the child was bullying a younger child. I said, excuse me? So a child, I believe he was in 6th grade, was bullying a 2nd grader.
Okay.
And my son stepped in and beat up the bully.
Okay.
And then my son's the one that got brought in the office. They said, something needs to be done about this. I said, you're absolutely right. Son, get in the car. I'm buying you ice cream.
You're damn right.
And the principal's like, no, he did something wrong. I said, no, he's defending somebody that can't defend themselves. You guys aren't doing your jobs because you're ignoring this. I'm not punishing him for doing something right.
Right.
Because he was scared. He thought he was going to get in trouble because he's always told, don't get in a fight, yada, yada, yada. But he also knows that's not okay.
Right.
If someone's younger and can't defend themselves, he's going to step in.
Yeah.
And he kind of got that rep as like, that protector and stuff. And now he's serving our country. So
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I took him and got him ice cream.
What flavor?
He actually got chocolate.
Aw.
Because he gets all over him. But yeah, and he was suspended the next day. So I let him stay home and play video games. I didn't punish him,
Yeah.
Because to me, it was a justified fight.
Yeah.
He helped that young child.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, good on him. Good on him.
Yeah. And this just proves, like, this is happening under their noses. Like, why aren't the teachers paying? I know teachers can't watch everything going on.
Right.
But there's going to get enough buzz about it. You can't turn your blind eye to children being bullied.
Yeah.
You need to step up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in the justification there as well, there's two sides to every story, and you don't want to damage the other child. But the fact of the matter is that there's a child there that's being damaged, and that's the child that's being bullied.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you destroy the child bullying's identity and hurt them. I'm just saying you pull them aside and explain to them, this is not right.
Right.
This is not okay. Why are you doing this?
Right. Exactly.
You have a conversation with the child.
Yeah. Yep.
And yes, the bully gets punished because they're breaking the rules.
Right. Right. Interestingly enough, if the praise that you showered on Mrs. Bruiser doesn't work,
okay,
earlier in the program about being the prettiest woman in Las Vegas,
yeah,
there's a man that killed his wife and replaced her with the kid's teen babysitter. So I mean, you could throw that deal in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a viable option. I'm just saying that it happened in 1982.
It was a different time back then.
It was a different time back then. Chris Dawson was convicted in his wife Lynette's 1982 murder in Australia. There's a story out there this week in Newser that says that one of Australia's longest running cold cases, which fascinated tens of millions of listeners on a true crime podcast similar to this one, has been solved. Following a 3-month trial by judge, Chris Dawson was convicted Tuesday in the 1982 murder of his wife, Lynette. Dawson claimed Lynette walked out on the family, including 2 young kids, that January, and that he spoke with her in the weeks following. But prosecutors said the 74-year-old former high school teacher killed his wife so he could carry on a relationship with a 16-year-old student who served as his children's babysitter. The Teacher's Pet, which is a podcast released in 2018, revealed testimony claiming Dawson had a sexual relationship with the student identified as JC. Oh, that could be bad.
That could be really bad.
Yeah, you don't want to F with JC, if you know what I mean. Especially
an underage JC.
Yeah. Who moved in with him around the time that Lynette vanished. Several witnesses claimed to have seen Lynette after 1982, but Justice Ian Harrison dismissed each claim as mistaken or false, according to CNN. The judge, who questioned why a woman supposedly desperate to leave her marriage would provide updates to her husband on the status of her decision to leave, also concluded Dawson's reported telephone conversations with Lynette Dawson after January of 1982 are lies. Though no body was ever found, the whole of the circumstantial evidence satisfies me that Lynette Dawson is dead. This is a quote, that she died on or about January 8th of 1982, and that she did not voluntarily abandon her home, Harrison said, per the AP. He cited testimony from the former student who wed Dawson in 1984 before exiting the marriage in 1991. Oh, she got out of there.
Well, yeah, she grew up.
Yeah. Huh.
Yep.
The court heard that Dawson confessed his love to JC during a driving lesson.
Oh, come on.
That's a little too immature. Yeah. And the pair soon began having regular sex in his car. Because why not? They're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point...
No wonder she failed her driver's test 4 times. She kept trying to have sex with the driving instructor.
Well, you would think that would make him make her pass. At that point, Dawson realized he could not remain married, yet still maintain his ever more intense relationship with JC. Harrison said per CNN, he added that the only rational inference was that Lynette died as the result of a conscious and voluntary act committed by Mr. Dawson with the intention of causing her death. Defense lawyer Greg Walsh said Dawson, who faces possible life sentence, maintains his absolute innocence of the crime and would appeal. Lynette's brother, Greg Sims, instead appealed for him to finally do the decent thing and allow us to bring Lynn home to a peaceful rest. I somehow don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so either. He's not going to say anything.
No, because he does, and then he finally admits that he's guilty of what he did there.
Exactly. And he doesn't want to feel any guilt or anything. I mean, he was after a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
You don't go after a 16-year-old with a good conscience.
No, you don't. You don't. Speaking of, I don't know what's with the creepy stories this week. I don't know what. I'm in that creepy vein, I guess, this week. A Florida man is arrested for allegedly stalking a 6-year-old girl, saying he'll make her a big girl.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's not how this works.
No. A Florida man was arrested Saturday after allegedly stalking a 6-year-old girl, telling her he would make her famous and turn her into a big girl as she played outside.
Why would you say that? Like, I don't get what goes through people's heads like that.
I don't know.
Like, oh, this is a smart thing to say. No, it's not.
No. And by all means, if anyone were to ever tell your child that, cut his nuts off.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
I had a person I went to high school with that had been around my children, and after we drifted apart as friends, he was arrested for such things with a child. So the first thing I did was ask my children,
Yeah.
Hey, did this, anything? You can be honest with me, because he was in jail where my dad was the CO. Mm-hmm. So if he would have done anything, I would have told my dad. My dad would have given me 5 minutes for sure. He would have let me have 5 minutes with him. You don't. They're innocent. You leave them alone.
Yeah.
55-year-old
Mark Greenberg of Deltona is accused of at least 11 incidents over the past 8 months in which he harassed neighbors, yelled at them and their kids with a megaphone. What is he, Jimmy Hart?
Get off my lawn.
And drove past houses while recording children on his phone. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office is claiming. In one incident, the father told deputies that Greenberg walked to the end of the driveway where his 6-year-old daughter was playing and made unusual comments, allegedly saying, "I'm going to make you famous and I'm going to turn you into a woman or a big girl." That is just creepy.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. Several witnesses gave deputies similar accounts of Greenberg's comments to the child, including that he said he was going to pick her up and take her to Disney World. Oh, no. What a creep. The girl's father said Greenberg's comments had gotten progressively worse and more frequent, and that his daughter was afraid to go outside, and I don't blame her at all.
I don't either.
On Thursday and Friday, Greenberg was seen taking pictures outside the girl's grandmother's house in another neighborhood where she often visits. The family believed Greenberg followed someone there because he has never been invited there and had no reason to know where the grandmother lives.
You know who deserves an award here? The parents, because they didn't do anything. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but they didn't become vigilantes.
Yeah.
And I would have lost it. I would have shoved that phone so far up his ass.
Yeah.
So he can take pictures of the inside.
Yep. He could take pictures of his stomach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Deputies attempted to speak with Greenberg on Friday evening, but said he refused to answer the door and told them he would talk another day.
Come back tomorrow.
Yeah. If you're still alive, then, buddy. Yeah. Deputies obtained a warrant and took Greenberg into custody without incident on Saturday. Greenberg faces a charge of aggravated stalking of a person under the age of 16. He was being held at the Volusia County Branch Jail on a $5,000 bond. All I got to say is good luck in jail there, pal.
Yep. They do not do well in jail.
The minute they identify you as a chomo, you're done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the guards will turn the other cheek.
That's right. Chilling new details emerge in the fatal shooting of Imani Armstrong. You may ask who Imani Armstrong is. This is an interesting case, boy, I'll tell you. This has got "seamy" written all over it.
Seamy.
Steamy.
Steamy. Okay. Well, they said seamy.
Yeah, seamy is a word. Trust me on this.
Okay, I trust you.
All right,
I trust you.
Chilling new details emerged on Sunday in the murder of an exotic dancer in Gramercy Park in New York, including how her accused killer lie in wait outside her workplace for 5 hours before executing her in cold blood. Suspected pimp Clarkson Wilson. It's not really a pimp name, is it?
No, it's not.
No. Who had at least one child with the victim, stripper and part-time IHOP waitress Imani Armstrong. That's a hell of a resume.
You know, she does the lunch rush at one and the dinner rush at the other.
I guess. Then went to a subway station to change clothes and hopped a train home to Brooklyn, where cops eventually found his discarded duds in the garbage. Prosecutors revealed during his arraignment. Wilson.
Well, they were all sparkled and bedazzled like a pimp suit is.
I guess.
Every pimp suit I've seen is like neon colors and brightly giant suits. Like, don't murder somebody in that.
No, you never do.
They're going to find it.
That's right. 44-year-old Wilson faces a second-degree murder rap for allegedly killing Armstrong after she finished up at her shift at a Manhattan IHOP early Thursday. No motive has yet been given in the case. Wilson first made his first court appearance on Sunday, where prosecutors said he blasted Armstrong in cold blood with one gunshot to the back of her head. Wilson could be seen on video first taking a subway train to Manhattan and waiting outside of the IHOP for 5 hours, according to prosecutors. Video then allegedly shows him following Armstrong for several blocks after she gets off work. He put on a sweatshirt and a mask and ran up behind her to deliver the fatal bullet, according to prosecutors. He then left the scene, changed clothes inside a subway station, and took the train back to Brooklyn, according to authorities. Cops later searched his home and found the clothes he wore during the killing inside a garbage bag. Detectives also recovered 2 guns inside a safe at the apartment. The repeat felon was remanded without bail after the judge deemed him a flight risk. Wilson has more than 20 arrests on his rap sheet, including several for domestic violence. Law enforcement sources previously told the Post that Wilson is a pimp and was arrested in 2018 for slashing a woman for refusing to be trafficked by him. The victim in that incident needed 150 stitches. Wilson was initially charged with attempted murder before the case fell apart. Wilson, who didn't speak on Sunday's hearing, is due back in court on September 8th.
So he killed her outside the IHOP, not even the strip club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he basically got her outside the IHOP.
Yeah. 5 hours, though. I think, you always hear about these serial killer stories and stuff, or these stalkers where they'll do something for like 5-6 hours. They'll wait for these people. Like, I don't have the patience for that. Like, I'd get bored, or I'd be on my phone or something and just get distracted. My target would just walk away. Like, oh, dang, they caught the train without me.
Well, that's clearly a crime of passion. I mean, they have a child together. So, I mean, obviously something's going through his head.
I'd be a horrible assassin where you have to just sit and wait.
Bruiser, the ADD assassin.
I'd just be terrible. Like, I just get distracted. I get hungry at some point in time. Like, I was going to go grab a burger, come back. Oh, man, they left.
Look, squirrel. Your target runs away.
I just start looking at pictures of Ziggy Starpup. Like, oh, look at oh man.
Look at my girl. And, oh, they're gone.
Oh, I missed it all. Even if it's a crime of passion, I'm not that passionate about waiting.
Do I still have to wait around? Do I still have to wait around?
What if she was like going to work overtime too? It's like, oh, you're doing overtime? Come on. I want to kill you.
I'll just pay for it. I'll give you the money for overtime. Will you
You're
just
going to be dead soon anyways. Hurry up.
just punch out already?
And that's why I'm not an assassin.
The impatient ADD assassin. Why is this guy giving me money? He just wants you to punch out. Why? I don't know. He just said something about it's killing him to kill you.
Let's make sure you take this way home. He's waiting for you. Here, could you please call this number? Why? Who is it? I don't know. Some guy wants to kill you. Can you call him when you get off work?
Oh, That's horrible.
It is. It's terrible. We shouldn't be laughing, but that pimp had more patience than I did.
He did. That's why he's a pimp.
See, I couldn't be a pimp either. You have to handle all those girls. And each one has their own individual problems. Like, no, thank you.
Look at you. You're like, I can't handle the issues. Not for such a low amount of money.
Yeah, no.
Nope. I got to make more money than that.
I have 3 daughters and a wife. That's enough for me. I couldn't even imagine if I was in charge of like getting them out and making me money. Oh my gosh.
But
Plus, they just gang up and make fun of me the whole time. Like I would be a horrible pimp.
But yet you'll go tear up your body for a couple of bucks. We found Bruiser's wheelhouse.
It's my kryptonite.
Couldn't be a pimp. Don't have the patience, but couldn't be an assassin. Don't have the patience.
See, beating myself up. Well, no, I do have to wait because you get to the building so early, and it's like, I just want to wrestle. Yeah, no,
yeah.
You hear about these serial killers that would spend all this time to kill the one person. And you're like, what did you do for that whole amount of time?
Well, a lot of serial killers are spur of the moment. They just find somebody and they
They are. But I'm talking like the stalkers.
Yeah,
the
stalkers.
Like I'd be like, hold on, let me score this touchdown and then I'll be right there to kill you. Hold on. Okay, here I come.
Yeah, that's why you don't have it in you, my friend. You just don't have it in
that's
you.
the reason I don't kill people.
That's right. Just not patient enough. Finally today on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, I think I found a place for your cocaine.
I hope it's somewhere near the butt.
It is! It's actually packed in with the baby wipes.
Okay.
Turns out that the Border Patrol estimates that the street value of a cocaine bust recently was $11.8 million, and it was packed in with the baby wipes.
Okay, so it's not packed in the guy's butt. It's
No.
Well, can you imagine the $11.8 million in cocaine up your butt? Ouch.
That's a big ass, my friend. Yeah.
It is.
That's a huge ass with $11.8 million.
Oh.
Yeah. Border Patrol officers at the Columbia Solidarity Bridge near Laredo, Texas, decided somebody should take a second look at a trailer truck supposedly transporting baby wipes, what the agency described as a canine and non-intrusive inspection last weekend found unlisted cargo, which would be 1,935 packages holding about 1,533 pounds of reputed cocaine.
That's a lot of cocaine.
That's a hell of a drug right there. Officials put the street value of the cocaine at $11.8 million. Randy Howe, a Border Patrol official in Laredo, tweeted that it was the largest cocaine bust in 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Several federal agents, which are now running around like crazy, and they say it isn't because they've lost any coffee there at the agency, are investigating this bust.
They found out because they ran out of toilet paper. The guy's like, oh, hey, baby wipes, cool. Went into the bathroom.
Yeah.
Wiped his butt with the cocaine-laced baby wipe.
They're like, hey, I feel a little dirty today. I need to clean up a little extra. Let me use those baby wipes.
Whoa! Let's go bust some terrorists.
Hey, who's coming over the border? Who's coming over the border?
Hey, you got drugs? You got drugs? You got drugs? Are you holding? You got drugs?
How many people are in your car? How many? How many? How many? How many? Yeah, so a little extra activity at the border.
Yeah.
Courtesy of L Baby Wipes.
Hey, that means the baby wipes.
That's right.
I learned that in my Babel.
That's right. In your Babel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So, yeah. There you go. So that'll do it for Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals for this week. Want to thank James Stewart for joining us today. Folks, go out and get the book. The book has been out there for a little bit yet. It's at wildbluepress.com or jamesstewartauthor.com. And the name of that book is Mystery at the Blue Sea Cottages, a true story of murder in San Diego's Jazz Age. It's all about the murder of Fritzie Mann almost 100 years ago, an interpretive dancer who is mistaken as a flapper by society. Very intriguing book. Very intriguing book about that murder 100 years ago and kind of the parallels of society 100 years ago as opposed to today. Fascinating book. I went through it very quickly. It's a very fascinating book about Fritzie's murder. Has some ties to old school Hollywood as well in the silent film age. And again, it's just a very, very good read. So I encourage you to go get it. There's a link in the description of the show. Bruiser, where are you going to be this weekend?
I am actually right here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm taking off my wrestling hat, and I'm putting on my coach's hat and producer hat. And we have a student showcase on Friday that I'm going to help the young ones put together their underwater needlepoint matches and whatnot. And then on Saturday is George South's birthday. And
yeah.
They're having a show, and they're going to donate all the money from tickets and stuff to him. And again, I'm putting on the coaching/producing hat, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to help out with all the young kids that are there too, just to pass my knowledge along and help the future of professional underwater needlepoint.
Well, happy birthday to George South. Wow. How old is George?
I want to say 63.
Really?
I have to look again. Maybe 60. I don't know. Okay. But he is an entertaining fellow. Let me just say.
Yeah, he is.
For those not familiar with George South, is in wrestling we have what are known as job guys, and they're the guys that make the talent look really good. And George South, Ric Flair handpicked every time he came into the Mid-Atlantic area, and would wrestle him for an hour every single night, just for years. And George is a wealth of knowledge that I've gotten to know lately, and he's trusted me where he's found some kids that wanted to learn wrestling, and he's passed them along to me because he understands that I get it and I can help the future. So that's what I'm doing this week, and I'm helping the future. That's really cool. Yeah. Well, happy birthday, sir. We appreciate everything you've done for the business, and hope he has a great birthday. That's for sure. I hope so too, because he deserves it. Yeah, most definitely. Nothing going on here for this weekend. I know, you know what? I got an invite, and I hope I can make it. Our buddy Corey over at Jelly Bean and Julia is doing a rib cook-off this weekend. He asked me if I wanted to go hang out with him. Yeah. So I might go do that. That would be amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually, Mrs. Bruiser had requested that we go to the Hillbilly Barbecue out here because it's to die for. And they just got that Dr. Pepper barbecue you were talking about. Yeah, yeah. And I said, you know what they announced it's coming out sometime this week. We're going the day they announce it because Tim says it's fantastic. Oh, I'm telling you. Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce, there's nothing like it. Yeah, I'm going to try it this week, and next week I'll definitely let you know what I think of it. Yeah.
So I may go hang with Corey this weekend. He doesn't know it yet, but he may have a straggler with him. So.
Oh, I forgot to say, this is very important. So Ziggy Starpup.
Yeah.
On Saturday, we are taking her to meet her litter mates.
Really?
So the way that we got her was a guy had come into the Humane Society with a litter of 5, 3 boys and 2 girls, and said, either you take these puppies or I'm just going to leave them on the side of the road.
Aww.
So the Humane Society took them in. They're in no-kill shelter. And we actually went to go see Ziggy's brother because we were looking to adopt him. And that's when Ziggy ran up, sat down, started licking my hand, and wouldn't leave me alone. Aww. Then she walked up to Mrs. Bruiser, same thing. We went, this is it. She's coming with us. So all the other puppies were adopted by other families, and on Facebook they all got together, and we're doing a kind of a reunion of the original 5. And I'm really excited for her. We're hoping that she remembers who they are, and it'll be just fun to watch her play with other puppies,
Yeah.
that are relatives to her. So
that's really cool.
That'll be before the birthday party. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for her.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Hopefully she remembers all the siblings and they all get along well.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get a photo, but you know how it is with 5-month-old puppies.
Yeah. It's like herding cats. Yeah.
All right, ready? Oh no, Ziggy, get back in. Get back in. Come on.
Yep. Get in line.
Yep.
Yeah. But hopefully you can get a photo. Hopefully.
Yeah. So check my socials this weekend. You'll see pictures of my puppy and her siblings.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that'll do it for today. Tomorrow, of course, Supernatural News. We've got that going on. Daniel Duke is on Thursday. We'll be talking again about Jesse James and some conspiracy having to do with... I know we went into some conspiracy with Daniel Duke about 2 years ago. But he's got a new book out going further into conspiracy having to do with, I believe, Templar gold and some other things. So we're going to go deeper, a little bit deeper into that. So that's coming up on Thursday.
Big fan of the Jesse James myth. And when I lived in Missouri, you better believe I went to all the locations where the gold might be. All the caves and everything. Oh, yeah. Well, I will definitely be listening to this.
Daniel Duke believes that there's a map that has different drop points, that the entire, believe it's the entire Civil War was funded by Templar gold. So we'll get deeper into that on Thursday. That's coming up on Thursday. So, yeah, but in fact, I should ship you out the original book. I think I have the original book actually right next to me here. So you can read that first book, but the second book is getting even deeper into the mystery. So
yeah, anything Jesse James, I'm in. My son's middle name is James because of that.
Yeah. But Daniel Duke is a direct descendant
of Jesse James, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's coming up on Thursday. So we got a busy week here on Darkness Radio. Again, folks, we want to thank you so much for listening to the show. I had such a fun time meeting a vast majority of you, not a vast majority, but a good amount of you out at Michigan Paracon that came out to say hey. And a lot of you had good things to say about the show, about me, about Bruiser, about how you're liking the new format. Again, you want to drop some comments to us, tim@darknessradio.com. Want to encourage you. I forgot to tell you this last week. We've launched a new website, darknessradioshow.com. Go to darknessradioshow.com and you can actually leave us a voicemail for Parashare. So you can do that now by going to darknessradioshow.com. On the right-hand side of the website, you can click on that blue button. There's a 2-minute little loop that you can leave a story. You might have to hit it a couple of times to leave your story, but you can leave us a voice note, and I'll take and stitch those together, and we can play your voice note here on the air if you don't want to type out your story. You don't have to necessarily type it out anymore. You can leave your voice note, and we will take and play it on the air here. So that's one of the things that's there at the website. We're leaving blogs now on the website. So there's blogs up that just kind of have little things there. I'm going to put a new Michigan Paracon blog up. There's just a blog up there right now that just says welcome to the new Darkness Radio site. The archives are on that website as well. So if you're looking for, archives of Darkness Radio, it's at darknessradioshow.com. They're being hosted there now. So darknessradioshow.com. There's lots of little surprises there for you. So that's the website to go to. So go ahead and go to darknessradioshow.com if you're interested in everything Darkness Radio. That's going to do it for today. We will see you tomorrow for Supernatural News. For Beer City Bruiser, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you for listening to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday.